back again with Type 40 live and raw in the nicest possible way. Extra reaction editions of the live stream Doctor Who magazine show all across your view screen on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook, talking all things Doctor Who with these bonus editions dedicated to those brand new episodes. And red alert, when we last saw them, the Doctor and Belle were seeing red. So were we. What on earth or elsewhere have the Ranis and that nasty podcaster chap got lined up for them next? It's not quite the end, but the moment has been prepared for. What on earth is all this about? We'll find out together on Type 40 Live. And yet the time has come. This is it, May the 24th, 2025. Time to deliver for Bad Wolf BBC Studios and Disney+. Time for us to tell our stories and compare our notes too, and see where it all lines up as we head into the final straight, isn't it, of this season. So here we are with our hottest of takes on that new episode of Doctor Who that's just screened on BBC One, and it's been sat there, hasn't it, on Disney+ and the iPlayer all day. Look at this. Tomato red still in the console room. Hope they shut the doors this time. Hello. Yes, so I'm Dan Hadley, Birmingham's King of the Geeks. Welcome back to the TARDIS, such as it is. Just watch where you're sitting. I think some of the surfaces may be somewhat warm. We've got a lot to talk about as ever. Despite the fact it's only been 44 minutes worth of Doctor Who, there was a lot in there. Wasn't that? There was a lot in there. We're going to find out what the panel have got to say. We've got all the team ready to join us in a moment. And of course, there's you guys too, isn't there? On YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X, ready, primed. But you can't wait, can you, to get stuck into that one? So much lore sort of dotted around, wasn't there? And lots of Russell T Davies isms for us to tick off on the old bingo sheet too, I think. So yes, come at us with all of that and we'll tell you what we think, and maybe between us we might be able to make some sense of it. You never know, do you? You never know. Okay, yes, so well they look confused. They looked confused last week. Again, the action sort of shifted, didn't it? They vacated the TARDIS so we could pick it up all this time later. Okay, who shall I bring in first? Enough of this waffle. Who shall I bring in first? Okay, so happy to say that she's made it through again, made it through another weekend, another week of intensive coverage of this season of Doctor Who. Charlotte Shields.
Hello, everybody.
That good? You're laughing already. Is that good?
But just you'll find out soon if it's laughter of good or not.
We're sort of running a little bit on adrenaline now, aren't we, with these live streams, I think.
I think it's just like you sort of just come out of them after watching the episode, and you sort of just have to feel like you have to speak with friends just to sort of sort out what you just watched more than anything of late.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that, because if you look at the other people in your life, you know, friends and family and pets even more so, and you try and explain about what you just watched, they just look at you blankly now, don't they?
Oh yeah. Like my brother, who hasn't watched it in years, but he watched it back like when I did when we were both younger. Like he sort of understands what I'm going on about half the time, and like he will either say, "Yeah, that sounds pretty bad," or "That sounds good."
Sadly, that's the conversation I tend to have with more people who've stopped watching it, and
yeah,
the sort of the general line of the sound is, "How much worse has it got since I last saw it?" That seems to be the yardstick.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of. You can tell like just more and more layers of people are sort of peeling off, and then the people who are left are sort of very much, we said this, you can't deny it now, it's the core of the core audience now that's still watching this.
They don't come much more hardcore than the people we're about to bring in
No.
to fill out the panel either, I'm happy to say. So we're going global, as always, more global than Disney+, I think. And we're happy to welcome back Mr. Matt Pott and Mr. Gary Akers. Good evening, guys. Well, good evening for us anyway. I think it's somewhere in the middle of the day for you, Gary, and morning to Matt Pott, of course.
Yeah, it's morning after 5. So I was talking to my therapist, who's a dog, and He said as long there wasn't any dogs in it, was there? I said no,
No.
but there was a meow. So numerous meows. So
Some
yeah,
ducks. There were ducks.
There was
dogs,
meows.
but owls. Somewhere.
I don't
There
want
was
to
an
start
owl
out. I don't
as
want
well.
to. I don't want to start out, Dan.
Harry Potter.
I don't want to start out by contradicting Dan, but we will not be able to make sense of all this. I wanted to just put that right out there.
Oh, we
I
can
expected the
try.
owl to show up, but it didn't.
I'm so glad
You know,
that we
with the
got
letter.
another. I'm so glad that we got another week's break from actual science fiction. You know, because
Harry, keep it.
I was
Keep it.
exhausted. I was exhausted by all that science fiction stuff.
After 59, 60 years, yeah, they're giving us a
I
break.
felt like I was watching Hansel and Gretel at the beginning. It was weird.
Now, I love all that stuff. There used to be a show called Tales from Europe when I was a kid, which was those kind of, they were always sort of dubbed over and things. And we used to have lots of old, like the Flashing Blade or those old adventure series
Oh yeah,
from that part of the world that had all been dubbed. So that's kind of what galloping horses and leafy glades and dubious sort of accents of the people that used to get to dub them. So that did sort of take me back to those days. If anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about here on the panel, I know for a fact that David Milling, he's almost certainly going to.
Hello, everybody. Hello, all.
Hello.
Hello. I'm slightly confused. I've spent 3 days at Trent Bridge, watching the wonderful Zimbabwe make a wonderful return to touring England again, and I've sung songs.
Hang on, weren't they the giant ants from the Web Planet?
Yeah, they were the Zimbabweans,
Cool.
and I spent today learning Zimbabwean songs and seat dancing, which is very, very untrendy. To the Zimbabweans singing a lot of their cultural songs, and I came back and I turned on the television, and it's as if those 3 days didn't happen. You know, my head's hurting somewhat, but I've just received a text from my friend who works at Radio 2, and he can say that someone's forgotten to put Rylan in the freezer. So it's a bit
He's gone off
at the moment. So sadly, Rylan's disappeared.
Gone off? Was he ever on?
Yeah,
there he is.
But yeah, I feel like I have watched an episode of Tales of the Unexpected on acid, and I'm not quite sure who I am, what's going on. But my iPlayer was very kind to me, because after that episode, it obviously felt very sorry for me and went straight into Planet of the Giants, and now I'm saved.
Some sort of like inbuilt therapy. Maybe they knew that after we watched this episode, they'd have to suggest classic to us all to sort of cleanse the palate.
You know, if Ryland's not in the freezer yet, that means that the last episode isn't canon.
No, absolutely. Or even a glitter cannon.
Don't put that image in my head again.
Sorry, I do apologize. So yeah, I'm great. I'm confused, but I'm great. Thank you. I hope you're all. I'm liking the fact that your therapist is a dog, Matt. Any particular breed?
He's a Moodle.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, but we don't talk about that.
Okay, that's probably best for the best.
Ask a silly question and all that jazz. I mean, if we are going to expunge the Interstellar Song Contest from canon, at least we can swap in its place dimensions in time. I think.
Yes.
So
I watched that
one.
again.
Well, that has actual doctors in it.
Yeah, can we watch that? Can we do a live stream of that, please?
It made sense.
We've been planning one. We have been planning one for quite a long time, so it is quite likely we're gonna touch.
You know what's fun?
We're gonna touch on that.
I still haven't watched that the whole way through. I've still never watched it properly, so it would make me have to watch it.
So
would you rather us make you watch this, or would you rather?
that third canonical appearance of the Rani in Doctor Who
right.
from back in 1993. And there she is with that guy. He looks a little bit like
Proper
the bloke
Rani.
who's now middle-aged and appears in All Creatures Great and Small, isn't he? But we'll come to that. a little
Wow,
later
I never
on.
realised. Yes, I've seen him
Oh my
around.
gosh, that's right.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes,
he's quite a big
that's
actor
the
now.
actor. That's the actor Sam West. Yeah, and there he
Oh,
was in a
man.
very, very early role back in
Yeah.
1993, opposite the fabulous
Bigger than
Kato
Shooty
Mara.
now.
Bigger than Shooty. Look how huge Shooty is here. Look at those trousers. I don't know. Okay, so yes,
No, thank you.
we have been exposed, haven't we? We've been exposed to another episode of All New Doctor Who, the penultimate episode of the latest season, screened on BBC One tonight, and it had a lot to live up to. I think when you bring back classic characters, even classic characters who've only appeared twice, stroke 3 times. Expectations from our side, our corner of the audience, well, say corner, we now make up the bulk of the audience, don't we?
Yes.
The actual fans. Expectations from us are going to quite naturally be that little bit higher. So we're going to be talking about both of the Ranis, all of the plot, lots of the side characters, and everywhere else the plot sort of, well, say plot, everywhere else the story sort of meandered around as we get stuck into this edition of the show. And you can join in too on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X. Share your experiences as well and how much sense that you managed to make of it when it dropped there onto the iPlayer and Disney Plus at 8 a.m. UK time this morning. And of course, it's just screened on BBC One in its traditional home. Doctor Who very much back. He was back too. Podcaster dude. He was looking a lot more sort of laid back this time, so it appears. I'm not sure what part he
Did
plays.
they have
He
him
was
on
sort of
sedatives
behind
or
it.
something?
Could be.
We'll get to that.
I wish I had
Could be.
some.
Even Shooty was somewhat sedated in this, wasn't he? He wasn't wearing anything stupid this time either. So we'll get into that as well, I don't doubt. But Shooty Gatwa has been all over the press this week, hasn't he, for the wrong reasons. Most of it
Really?
is stuff that we'd already talked about, stories that we broke here on the show earlier this year. But of course, the fact that he did pull out of the Eurovision coverage, when was that? That was this time last week, wasn't it? He pulled out at a moment's notice. That does seem to have meant that the press in Britain, the tabloids mainly, I think there's only the tabloids left. Not many people read them, but they've all landed on that story that the Gatwa era is about to end, and all that speculation about who's done what to who hasn't done whatever, and what the fallout is going to be for Doctor Who itself over the next 7 days. We're going to cover all of it here at Type 40 Live, as we have the entirety of Shooty Gatwa's time on the show, right from his casting. Here we've been blow by blow by blow. And if you don't believe us, you can check us out there on the podcatcher of your choice with the Type 40 podcast. News, reviews, previews, interviews, geek outs, and deep dives with all our regular panelists and lots of awesome guests. It's all over there, as well as our home feed at type40.podbean.com. And this is our instant reactions bonus live streams. We've been doing this for the last couple of months, each and every Saturday, trudging our way through this season with mixed results. But we've enjoyed each other's company, and we've very much enjoyed your comments there in the live chat too. So here it all is, preserved for posterity. Our descent into insanity, Gary, is here on YouTube forever.
Well, if people don't want to watch the episodes again, they can just watch these streams over and over.
I like it. I like your thinking. So, yeah, we're going to find out where everybody is with this one, whether there's tears, yet more tears. Could there be a few smiles? I don't know. I think somebody's probably lined up a couple, particularly if you're a fan of a certain classic villain, like another classic villain. We'll get stuck into it all as the conversation continues. But here's a quick reminder about what we've just watched and what could be to come in this fabulous fan-made unofficial trailer, a lot more exciting than the ones you get off the BBC.
Poor old Earth died many years ago, on the old Earth date, May the 24th, 2025.
That was the day that I left. How can the whole world be dead?
Our name is the Rani. As for the doctor, I will bring him absolute terror.
Belle! I am not just gonna take you home. I am gonna save your home. Here we go.
Father, go back. Find me.
That is the sound of May the 24th.
Let battle begin.
That was rather exciting, wasn't it? Okay, so here we have been huddled round the TV, albeit in different rooms, in different countries. But think of it as we've all been huddled round the TV together to watch another episode of Doctor Who. And this is, in effect, our after show where Type 40 Live is unleashed and instant-ish with our reactions. All new Doctor Who Season 2 there, and this was Wish World, again by showrunner Russell T Davies, the first of a two-part blockbuster season finale, so we're promised. And the premise, the synopsis, is that traps are sprung and old enemies unite as the Doctor and Belinda finally arrive home to find a very different world. Can the Doctor see the truth before midnight arrives? Okay. This one, I have to say, you know, as much as I love Russell T Davies, I'm starting to approach these finales with a degree of caution. I don't mind telling you, Charlotte, a degree of caution, because I like the excesses of this brand of Doctor Who. I've said before, time and time again, I like the visualness of the way that Russell conceives his stories. I like how cartoonish it can be. And I like the audacious ideas. And I'm okay if things don't necessarily make sense, particularly in the first half of a two-part story. But obviously, there's only so far you can push that principle, I think, isn't there?
Oh yeah, you've still got to believe some of what's happening on screen, and you've got to have something to sort of hook you. That's the whole point of a part one.
When I turned this back on, David's got his head in his hands.
Well, we don't know what Dan thinks of the episode yet, so let's.
No. That's not at you, Dan. It's just sort of like I'm just you just triggered me by saying all of Russell T Davies's finales. So sort of like brought back a memory flash, you know.
Yeah, so I suppose the crux of the matter is always with these shows, particularly as they're so instant, Charlotte, is did you have a good time with this for 45 minutes or a bad time? You know, has this made your Saturday or spoilt your weekend?
Right. I will start with the main positive because I want to start with positive. Thank God Russell cast that actress as the new Rani, because the only time I was interested and the only time this sucked me in any way was when she was on screen.
Yeah.
Because she was, in the best way, this sort of quite arch sort of portrayal at times. She was chewing the scenery in a good way, this sort of enjoying. You could tell she was having the time of her life, this actress, being this sort of ruthless, evil, sort of like this all-powerful sort of being at times.
Because Charlotte, whilst it all didn't rest on Archie Punjab's shoulders when you recast a character like this, and at least the Master had been played by three or four people, but this character had only been played by one. So it was a lot to put on one person, wasn't it?
Yes, and I think this episode had sort of a lot of it was on her, and I just think at least Russell's cast her, because it's not easy to sort of, like you said, to come and be this character, which was such like a beloved character with Kate O'Mara, such an amazing performance with that actress originally. And what I like about this portrayal is it's not a copy. She could have just done a copy of Kate, but it's got the core essence of, like I said, that sort of this idea of she's top, she's Queen Bee, and she'll do what she wants and nobody's going to stop her, and that she sort of enjoys at times the theatrics. Like at the end when the Doctor still didn't have a clue what was going on and she was telling him, even though the dialogue wasn't amazing, her performance, you could see she was sort of going a bit extra because it was this big thing of, I know more than you. Like, you're the one who's sort of the imbecile here. I'm enjoying being the one to sort of lord this over you. So whenever
even though Charlotte, it's a different characterization, and she expands it in some ways and goes into other areas. There were times as well where I heard the late great Kate O'Mara in her voice.
Yeah,
I get the impression if she hadn't studied her, she'd at least been made aware of precisely who this character was, and that's not always something you get from Doctor Who stars, even in the.
I think she'd watched her. It came across as she'd watched Kate. She'd done her homework about this character. Sort of when she sort of was trying to sort of hint that she could maybe be friends with the Doctor, you sort of bought that sort of shared familial bond that they were trying to sort of do. So brilliant on her. And I like the fact that I still think Anita got a short end of the stick again, and I'm just rooting for her to get more next episode. But at least she had little moments of being a little bit sort of being the villain and sort of having a bit of a moan. But I still think
there's a dynamic there in the background, isn't there, for them to play with perhaps later.
Yeah,
There's something going on.
I think it was just a bit undercooked. So that's my main positive. Everything else, like I said, this plot went so slow. It was 45 minutes, and I felt like they were just treading water, going over beats we'd seen either in Who before or just in general media before this. Like, we've seen the Doctor be John Smith. We've seen him be in a domestic setting. We've seen this sort of idea of one authority figure like Conrad sort of using fiction or forced stories to sort of keep people in check. The idea of dissent and doubt. All these ideas, if you're going to do them, they've been done before, so you have to bring something new or interesting to the table. And for me, Russell was just running on autopilot writing. And the thing is, he had the perfect premise here with this idea of Wish World, that it was a created world by Conrad and the Rani. He could have gone bonkers with this. He could have gone really creative with having the Doctor in this setting, having him not know he's the Doctor, having UNIT be very much defanged in a sense and be this insurance company. Sort of having all these characters that we know what they're like and what they usually do in a different setting. That's the whole idea with this sort of story. And he did nothing with it. Like,
If I've got an issue with this brand of storytelling, Charlotte, it's often that there are so many ideas. For everything I said a moment ago about how Russell tells these stories in that very visual way, often there is so much in there, even if it's, and I'm not just talking about characters, but there's often so many ideas in there that are half formed or even less. You think, oh, that would have been a story in itself. And it sort of burns through various ideas and elements. And I don't know, I just think that if he just sit and look at actually the ingredients of each of these stories, and perhaps, and this is the man who wrote Midnight, which is as stripped back as you can possibly get, and then at the other end of it you've got something like this, which I could have stood an entire episode in the domestic setting. I wasn't finding that boring at all. I found it, I wouldn't say it was disturbing, but it had enough of the uncanny and that kind of Pleasantville vibe that I could have gone with that. Or alternatively, this stuff set in Bavaria in the past. There's lots of stuff.
It kept flipping between all these plot points that you were like, all right, we're doing this now, and it just, like with the domestic thing with the Doctor, and this is why I found it boring. That stuff is, Ncuti didn't bring any new dimensions to the character by being in that setting. He didn't show any new acting sort of chops, whereas in the Family of Blood,
she was superb again. In fact, she was probably one of the best things in it, her best performance so far. But when I compare to Ncuti in this, Charlotte, to David Tennant, for example, in Human Nature and Family of Blood, which the character is sort of in a similar situation, Tennant, you get the impression that he could have gone in all manner of directions with that. They could have done a whole season of him as that character. You do wonder. But here you think, Shooty, he wasn't necessarily convincing. He didn't seem immersed in the character, in this character, any more than he ever is in the Doctor.
The difference is in Family of Blood, they had a real story beat to tell with the Doctor being John Smith in that story. That the fact that he fell in love was a big part of that story, that he actually could have a relationship.
There was things pinning it down.
The beginning of things.
Charlotte, they had that to some extent. I mean, I'd go so far as to say not just for Arda, but I'd even say that the kid that plays Poppy was more convincing than Shooty Gatwa in many respects. And she's like,
that's the problem
a
here.
toddler.
You had thin material with an actor which can't make thin material better, whereas Tennant could. But my thing is, in Family of Blood, Tennant didn't play it like the 10th Doctor. He played it actually. John Smith in that story was a bit meek. He was a little bit coward. He was a little bit sort of all the traits that were very different to, especially at that point, Tennant's Doctor was this dashing hero. He was the one who would save the day. He was this sort of very sort of romanticized hero. So to see him sort of become this, he's a teacher and he's a bit meek and he's sort of tripping over his own words, that was interesting. Whereas here, I felt like the whole beat with Shooty being the husband didn't go anywhere.
The trick with these finales is to make us feel like we're watching something that's absolutely unmissable.
Yes.
And you know, Matt, you're a big movie fan as well. And although this isn't cinema, it kind of the beauty of it, I think, and the appeal of the show initially when Russell was doing it, and Stephen Moffat to a lesser extent, was the fact that it behaved. It had the sort of swagger of cinema, even though we knew that it was doing it on the fraction of the budget, and we go along with it because not only was it very convincing and felt the ideas seemed fully formed, but there was momentum. We knew what was at stake, and we liked all the characters. That's what I feel personally is the reason why it's not working this time. But is it working for you? I mean, what sort of experience did you have with this?
Well, the pace is way off. The only thing I liked about this episode were the yellow cups. That was the only thing I liked. That the whole notion of the yellow cup. You know, it's sort of like the Matrix where there is no spoon, you know?
Yeah.
But that's it. I didn't like any of the performances. I was just waiting for it to end. I just didn't. It didn't click with me. None of it did, and I felt that the whole thing with the family and all that could have been done in the first 5 minutes, and then we could have got on with the actual story. But it was just so slow and plodding. And I just felt that, you know, I was like, you could actually make this, like you said, Dan. I mean, they used to go, you know, click, 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 straight into everything, you know. I was more interested in this backstory than I was in the whole family background and the working and all this sort of thing. I got that. I understand that you don't have to keep going back to it. And I was more interested in what the hell was all this in aid of, and I still don't know. So, you know, it's like we have to wait again next week and hopefully. But the thing is, though, he had 44 minutes to fill this in, and he's just put in little pieces. And
we've got sort of four corners. We've got the stuff going on with the Doctor and Belinda living domestic bliss with their daughter. You've got the stuff that with Ruby and Shirley and that sort of underground, the kind of resistance people. Yeah. Then you've got what's going on at Unit, which is largely, utterly pointless. To my eyes, that's completely pointless. And then you've got what the Ranis and Conrad, what they're doing in the Bone. Is it called the Bone Palace, Gary? There was so much. I mean, I do like this kind of Russell T Davies sort of names he gives for things, but obviously when you've just watched an episode, it's hard to take them all in because.
See, I had flashbacks of He-Man because Skeletor used to live in a bone palace, and all that sort of thing. And I'm just hoping above hope that a lot of this is explained, because if it's not, it's all just a lot of hot air, really, and it's just going to be ending up like it was last year, where we won't be satisfied. We will not be satisfied by all these things, because
I think it's okay, Matt, in a TV show when we've got we watch it, we look at it, we can take in stuff with our eyes, and we can sort of put things together. If we're not putting the plot together, we can see if something looks like this character here, for example, on screen, this character plugged into something, processing something with all those eyes. We know that person has become sort of a component part of a semi-organic machine of some kind. So
she mentions
our cumulative awareness of other movies and TV shows. You mentioned the Matrix, Tim Burton stuff. That does some of the work for us. But I think Russell used to have a great way of balancing that stuff with the stuff that we didn't know and filling in the blanks just enough to keep an air of mystery and the sense of uncanny about it. But it just seems to have lost it. Gary, how about you? What did you make of this? 45 minutes of absolute waffle, or with some highlights?
Well, I'll tell you that it took me. I actually paused about 4 times in that 45 minutes to kind of go and do other stuff and come back to it because I couldn't fully engage for the whole thing.
You felt something was pushing you out of the episode, or was it just like Matt was saying, and just it was a trilogy, it was a little bit flat?
It was. I think it's because, look, I knew this was all a fantasy world, so no rules of logic or coherence apply. They can basically throw anything here, and it's something that's going to, people will start to remember, and then will kind of get undone. So in that sense, the premise didn't really, it was all set up, obviously, and I get it, because the resolution is going to be next week. But I think from the get-go, well, first of all, I agree 100% with Charlotte. Archie Panjabi was great as the Rani. I was really only engaged when she was on, because she very successfully went large without descending into melodrama and without diminishing the menace of the character, which is really hard to do when you're playing it really large like that. And she was very good. I also like the production design, the design of the the balcony, the way that the interior room was designed. I like the dinosaurs, although now I want to go out and watch that old Disney movie, One of Our Dinosaurs Is Missing, now that I've seen all these dinosaur skeletons walking around.
I loved the dinosaurs, and the fact that it's not necessarily explained, but you think, well, because it's the Rani, and because of what we know of the character before, he seems particularly fascinated with dinosaurs.
Yeah.
But any kind of organic life, and the transference of energy between organic life or species to species, how to her that is nothing. It's inconsequential. It's life is life. So that was going on in the corners whilst the bigger plot was ticking away.
Well, yeah, that's what I said on Thursday. I said on Thursday, I hope that there's dinosaurs in this one, and there was. I actually didn't. I'm actually tired of all the kind of and again, I understand I don't yet know how this is going to play out or tie together, but I am kind of tired of the fantasy indulgences, especially at the beginning, because the Rani now inexplicably is a witch, because even before the baby who has the wish powers gets engaged, she's able to turn the mom into violets, turn the kids to ducks, the dad to an owl, presumably for the rest of their lives. Presumably they will never turn back. So, but that's all fantasy without any need of explanation, because we don't need explanation in fantasy.
If that hadn't
it
been
never
so
came back,
overlit,
did it? There was no callback.
No, and I think if it hadn't been so overlit, it would have felt a lot more kind of somber and powerful, and had the kind of edge that Russell's work used to have,
like out of Grimm's fairy tales.
Pure Grimm. I mean, how I took it is that the Rani isn't a witch, but to people living in Bavaria in that time. It's that thing that anything that you perceive that you don't understand, it must be magic, but that's actually science. There's probably something she's like coated her lips with that there'll be technology and science behind that somewhere, but she makes it look like witchcraft because they were simpler, less sophisticated people. And that was so. I can see the sense in that. And when you look to Mark of the Rani and how she would be with the characters there, with the society that she was living amongst then, it's going, okay, I'll do this because people will talk about this witch.
And
I was really surprised that there was no reaction from that family, though. To me, wouldn't the husband like turn around as soon as something like that would happen? You know, it'd be like, right, kids, get out of here. You know, I've got to try and take her down, but nothing.
Yeah. Well, you should have been screaming witchcraft, witchcraft, witchcraft. And that's where it should have gone really, really sort of hammer.
The witch. I thought that, I mean, as far as the whole setup with the Doctor and Belinda waking up Mary next to each other, that was the idea of the Doctor waking up married to a companion is a complete ripoff of the year-long Eighth Doctor story in the Doctor Who magazine called The Glorious Dead, where the Master created a world like this. And the Doctor wakes up married next to Grace, married to her, because obviously that was the companion at the time. So this was a complete lift from that. The thing about Ncuti's portrayal is, you know, it made me realize it is completely beyond Ncuti's range to be able to play a straight husband and father. I didn't buy that for half a second. I mean, his reactions toward the baby are not the reactions of somebody who believes they've been this person's father for years. The very, you know, the way that he was interacting Belinda, it just did not sell it at all. And the one
goofy, wasn't it? And yes, the idea is goofy, but the people living the life, Verada pitched it perfectly. He didn't quite get it.
No.
Yeah. And the one question I'll put out there, because I think that Charlotte alluded to it before, that I couldn't figure out is if this world was constructed because of Conrad's wishes, you know, we don't know why or how or why she needs him yet or whatever. Right. If the world was created out of Conrad's wishes, why would he leave Ruby, of all people, just out there, hanging out there, having a high level of doubt to kind of live her life? You would think Conrad would have like a special place for her in some way, shape, or form. She wouldn't just be one of the crowd, you know, out there.
Well,
I couldn't believe that.
Go on, Matt.
Sorry. Well, no, I was just going to say, I felt that this is just my interpretation of it. So I felt because she'd been through a similar wish type thing, if you remember in Lucky Day, is it?
Oh,
well, no, they
it protected her.
They put images of was it called 73 yards?
Yes, sorry, 73 days.
I think the implication was that experience had changed her perception, her mind in some way, that she could.
Because that was another wish thing, wasn't it? So that they were stepped on. So I felt like she was protected, and that's the reason why it flashed back.
They should have made that more explicit.
To her looking out the window, if you remember, drinking.
Yeah,
they should have made all of this. They should have made all of this more explicit.
This is my problem.
But also, I'm sorry, but on that theme of Conrad. So you're telling me the guy that when we last saw him was seen as sort of this voice of the people. We were told he was like, he could turn the whole country against UNIT. He was this like ultimate charisma sort of influencer podcaster type. And he's happy just to sit in a room and tell stories.
Reading a Harry
That's why I said he seems sedated.
I don't think that's what they're suggesting. I think what they're likening it to is kind of sedation and kind of propaganda, the George Orwell kind of 1984 thing, whereby if somebody is charismatic and outwardly likable, has communication skills, and is attractive in the sense of being pretty. You know, people wouldn't be repelled by, oh, not him again. You know, I think the idea is that all of those factors will compel people to listen to him on different levels.
So here's the thing, I completely understood what his point was and what he was meant to be. He was very much meant to be George Orwell, that whole plot. I'm just saying, he seemed to be a character to me in Lucky Day to be driven by ambition and wanting to sort of be on top.
Yes.
And wanting to be like the guy who's calling the shots. And it feels like in this episode, unless there's something next week which we're going to learn, he's sort of become, like you said, this very sedate sort of, like he's sort of just put off to the side in the room.
Well, he's under some sort of spell as well, whether it's sort of hypnotism.
Do we know that?
Looking after the baby,
but that's one of the few things. I think, you see, usually I'd say we shouldn't really judge this because it's half of a story. That would be my usual get out for a lot of this kind of stuff. But most of the things that we're talking about are kind of dealt with in this half. There's a cutoff point. But the one thing that there isn't, there are 2 or 3 things, I suppose. But the main thing that there isn't a cutoff point to is Conrad.
Yeah.
Because obviously we've left him where we leave him. And we haven't seen any kind of, we haven't seen him realize anything as such. But he's the only person who is effectively still in the same place at the end of part 1 as he was at the beginning of it, if you like. Everybody else has affected some sort of change.
Nothing was really set up in this episode. That's the weird thing. Last year, if you remember the penultimate episode, everything was set up and everybody was excited. For that ending, for everything to be explained. We still don't have any setups here for the next one. So the next one to me is,
and that's it. Well, we have the big one at the end.
Well, and
I was looking at, like you said, Gary, earlier on. You kept coming back to it, coming back to it. I wasn't quite as bad as that, but I did get to a point where I had to check what the time was because it did seem like it had gone nowhere for about
30
5
minutes.
or 6 minutes. And I thought, I should be getting, because I remember The Legend of Ruby Sunday last year, the episode 7 of season 1, and I thought that episode was stunning and brilliantly paced, and it built and built and built and built, David. But this wasn't. It seemed to be treading water, and I couldn't really work out why. And just like you said, Charlotte, any time that the main Rani, wasn't on screen, I was like, oh, we want more of that. And we need to see her with the Doctor. And when that came, that was almost worth the wait. Ncuti couldn't hold his end up of the bargain. He was completely outclassed by Archie Punjab, but it was still pretty good. And it was interesting the way that Russell tends to write that stuff. They saw us dancing at whatever it was. They thought we were lovers and all. That was wonderful, but it wasn't enough. But the rest of it, I felt, was a lot of treading water to get us to that cliffhanger, which was pretty spectacular. But by that point, David, I felt that they'd lost so much in the pace. They'd almost lost me. And the feeling that I was left with was, phew, okay, now maybe we can start getting into something explosive. But of course, that was when the credits rolled. I mean, what was your experience like with this, David? You've been very patient listening to us all go on.
I wanted to really listen as to what you thought, and what one key, because my mind is still in half cricket mode, so I'm trying to make the adjustment back. So apologies about that. One key thing that you said to me, Dan, and you said to everybody, was the phrase, "I am very, very much taking into account that this is just one half of a story." What I want to do is I want to add to that comment, if I may, and just take it a little bit further by saying, if the first half of a story that you're either reading or watching or listening to or basically taking in is so poor or it doesn't make sense, it actually can make you just put the thing down, walk away, and say, to hell with part 2.
Because the idea is that it's okay for us. They know we're going to be there anyway. But the idea is
Yeah.
that the general public is going to be, good, you see Doctor Who on Saturday? I can't wait until next Saturday. That's the effect Doctor Who used to promote in the average viewers.
Exactly. And it's one of those things whereby we are, I am the sort of person that if a story, if a program, if what I'm reading, listening, or watching doesn't grab me within a certain amount of time, I'm like, right, okay, do I carry on? Or do I just press stop, put the book down, take the headphones off, and just walk away and go and do something else instead, or put something else on? It has to keep you engaged. For me, like everybody else, I had I persevered because I knew I was coming on, and I wanted to make sure that I gave this my fair time and attention. My perspective with this episode was whomever worked on the design of the sets, the effects, the visuals, not so much as you've alluded to for the lighting. I want to give them my utmost congratulations because I thought they were absolutely out of this world and stunning. Congratulations. You have presented your work to the highest degree of respect, that deserve the highest degree of respect and admiration. And I really do applaud you for that. And I stand cheering you for that hard work. I thought it was brilliant. But then, if you're not Archie Panjabi or Varada Sethu or the guy that plays Conrad, I thought, I'm not congratulating you because I thought your acting wasn't all that fantastic. I thought the script just had so much potential to go to the places that everybody has mentioned. There's so many tidbits, but it just seems that it suffered from some sort of random hyperactivity, that it just kept jumping and jumping and jumping just as things were starting to settle or to seem interesting, and then my interest was lost. I think the domestic scene went on too long. I thought, again, Varada was fantastic in that, and she wore quite some spectacular nightwear that I particularly enjoyed, which I thought would have pleased you, Dan. And I did actually think of you at that point. I thought, oh, Dan will be enjoying that. I thought, as Matt said, the cup thing was very interesting, or the mug, I should say.
Loved it.
It was very interesting. I thought the inclusion of Rogue was just pathetic. How many other time-sensitive beings could have been involved across the history of the program, all for Rogue to go doughy-eyed and "I love you, Doctor"? My goodness me, I did not need to see that.
He was in hell.
That stood out like.
So are we.
It's not deep enough, mate. Not deep enough. That stood out like a sore thumb. I mean, it has to have been in a. At first, I mean, I thought, have they just dropped this in there? But because the Doctor actually alludes to him being on screen, they can't have done. But of course, you do get a flash of Susan as well, and you think, well, surely if anybody should be breaking through and have a psychic
Susan.
connection with him, it would be his granddaughter with the psychic.
Well, she was in it for
abilities,
2 seconds,
Charlotte.
wasn't she? Or a split second.
There are two things about relationships I want to mention as well. Mel was painted to be a sad loner because she lived by herself. Now, that is not a very nice thing to do, because there are many, many people who are very, very happy to live by themselves, and they have lots of wonderful friends and a wonderful life, and they are just happy to not be with a partner. Also, on the other side, the line about you're going to grow, obviously your future is to grow up, be a good little wife, and to have children. Now, the thing is, many people and a lot of women, a lot of girls may want to get married and may want to have children. So is that, and this is not me saying this is what I believe. What I'm asking a question of people is that a bad thing?
Yeah. Can I ask a
I
question?
think what we're seeing here. Well, I think what we're seeing here, if just a moment, Matt. I think what we're seeing here, because this was, of course, written by Russell T Davies. This is a man who has obviously an incredible career, and generally speaking, historically, I've been a fan. But this is a man who his work is full of contradictions. He's an atheist who talks about faith and gods a lot. He's also somebody who, Matt, if we're led to believe in the statements that he makes and some of the creative decisions that he's made since he's been back, in particular, he is vigorously against any kind of stereotypes. And yet, as David has just described, he's quite happy to lean on stereotypes when it suits him, like the one that he plasters over Mel there.
I found the swipe.
Absolutely.
I found the swipe, just something about what David said and everything. I found the swipe about breastfeeding really odd.
What did you say about that? I didn't catch that.
Yeah, Rani said something.
Oh,
like
she
about
said something like
breastfeeding.
we're gonna be like drowning in breast milk or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
She
because
basically
the
said-
baby was the wish god or something.
So basically, if you were relying on the wishes of a baby, it would just be a world of breast milk. Was basically the joke.
Yeah.
Almost funny.
Absolutely. There is also another piece that I found jarring in the fact where Shirley said to Ruby, "But you don't look disabled." Many people with disabilities, I mean, I have 2 hidden disabilities.
Me too.
And the thing is, many people with disabilities that aren't hidden would never, I've never encountered anybody, fellow disabled person would say, "Oh, but you don't look disabled." Because that is probably one of the worst, because if we don't sort of walk round with a big sign saying, "Hello, I'm disabled," because it's one thing, it would just be too damn heavy all the time to carry it round.
I don't enjoy saying things like this about Russell's work, because I do like it, but the more that he seems to go out of his way to prove that he's very sort of 2025 and very much aware, as he views it, where society is now. In matters like this, I feel that he does actually expose I don't want to use the word ignorance, but I think he exposes areas where he's simply not as clued up and dialed in as he thinks he is.
Well, the whole disabled internment camp got me. I just thought that was utterly ridiculous. I honestly, and I was just, I couldn't believe that they did it. And the way that they were acting, I was just like, I could see that that's obviously what Russell perceives it as, people not being, but this is the issue, right, that I've got. Russell believes that we are ignoring these sort of people and their problems and everything, and therefore they go into they're being sent into a little internment camp. Okay, I'm going to say that again. And he doesn't realize we're all, to a lot of us people, we're all the same. I have a disability. I don't. It's not a physical one as such, but I don't go on about it. And we treat everybody the same. They seem to think that we all... It's different with the drag queen, okay? And I also noticed that there was a drag queen in that as well, with an eye patch. I don't know if you caught it, Dan.
I didn't see that. No, I didn't.
It was about a 6-foot bloke in a dress with an eye patch.
One of the pan shots.
Captain Birdseye for a moment.
So the harder he tries, the more ridiculous. He's not helping any of these causes that he's trying to champion.
And that's what I'm saying. It's a cause. To him, it's a cause, and he feels that we're not taking any notice of these causes, and we've put that he's lobbed them all in the gentleman Conrad, is it? Because I didn't watch Lucky Day, but the gentleman doesn't like gays, so therefore if you notice when they brought up about the homosexual, when Shooty started going on about, going on to the, well, he sort
Soldier
of
boy.
virtually cracked onto the other
He's a
army
terrible
bloke.
actor, that Colonel
To
bloke, isn't he?
Kate's boy toy.
It's all in Conrad's head, and to him, he's saying that this is what we are. To Russell, we are all like this bloke, where we don't want to know. But it's not that we don't want to know. We just don't give a shit. We don't care about them as far as we just want to get on with our lives as much as let them get on with their lives. We don't want to worry about people, it's just
who people sleep with. Yeah.
Well, we don't care about who people sleep with. We don't care about if someone's got a disability. We'll talk to them the same. It's just, but he's lumped them into one category. And I've just found that a bit disgusting.
Some people in the chat are responding, and I get it, was saying, well, okay, this is Conrad's created world. Okay, but then to me, that begs the question, if it's his created world and he himself as that character has a problem with that, with what he perceives as that type of person, class of person, whatever.
It's a bigotry.
But if this is Conrad's created world, why would they be there at all? And I just realized a few minutes ago, if this is Conrad's perfectly created world, why is Unit Tower there? Why is Unit in any way, shape, or form in this world when Conrad devoted his life to bringing Unit down? It makes no sense that Unit would be there at all if this was the world that he created.
Could he have had a change of heart? Could he have actually, because the stuff with Ruby is so muddy, Charlotte, could he have actually felt somewhere in there during his, 4 days in prison, could he have affected some sort of change, a bit of self-reflection, and could he think, look, I did this girl dirty, I'm going to annex her from all of this, and hopefully she can, could he have had a change of heart about Unit, or is this just bad writing?
But then using, like we said, this is Conrad's world, it's his views, that's why the world is structured the way it is. Then why would he, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that camp with Shelley and everybody there, they couldn't buy into the falseness, they could see beyond the reality that he was created because they were disabled? Was that...
I couldn't work it out.
Yeah, they could see the peripheral because they were used to not being talked to and being,
So he's talking about the class. He's talking about the class system as well, and as if the disabled people had effectively been treated as a kind of underclass.
Okay, but using that logic once again, this is Conrad's world with the Rani also influencing it. We know how intelligent the Rani is as a character. Why would they then have an inbuilt thing that a group of people could fight against you?
Yes.
Why would you have basically a whole class of people that by just design of what they are then cannot be tricked? Surely that would be a massive
I think it's
to
the
get
point.
your plan to stop.
Let alone an iPad because the plot says you have to have one.
Oh yeah, but also the other weird thing is with the Unit. Yes, it's Conrad's world, but stuff from the real world bled in, like Soldier Boy and Kate.
Right.
Yeah.
So that bled through, and I was going to mention this on the Lucky Day stream, but there was so much stuff in that episode. Russell, if you're going to convince me that two characters have a relationship, don't pick the two actors that have got the least chemistry.
Yes.
I didn't even believe they were mates in the other scenes.
And just so we don't get away with this disability theme, before we get away from this disability theme, you cannot sneak in wheelchairs. I'm sorry. No. You just can't. Yeah. You're going to be noticed, right? You're going to be noticed in the fact that you're trying to make sure that you're not noticed. And I just found that utterly ridiculous.
Yeah.
And when they called her an ableist,
Ruby gets called out as an ableist. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna quickly do Russell's job for him. All of this would have made, presuming that this can make any sense at all, all of this would have made a lot more sense if Conrad would have been the male baby she kidnapped at the beginning of the show, because then he has the power to create this wish world. But no, the baby is right there. It's like if Conrad was that baby, all of this would hang together a lot better.
Well, Russell's written himself into a problem there with this whole gods and pantheon thing, that he has to keep returning to it. Otherwise, people will forget about it because it's mumbo jumbo. It's more mumbo jumbo. There's so much claptrap in this entire era that people can't relate to. And because there's only 8 episodes, not enough time to play with any of it. So he has to keep going back there and sort of jamming characters that don't really seem to belong together at all. And when we try and sort of join the dots as viewers, because Doctor Who does kind of promote that in people, it's not a show that people watch in a passive way. We try and do that, and it never goes. It's not that it never goes where you expect it to or where you want it to, but when you take a step back from the places that it has taken you to, you think, well, none of this has felt affecting in any way. None of this has told any sort of clear story. You come away from it thinking more a case of. You kind of log the missed opportunities rather than take tally of all those great moments that you could talk about at the hypothetical water cooler on the Monday or in that. This is it's just lost any kind of shape at all. And more to the point as well, my problem with this, now I can't really add anything that you guys haven't picked up on so far. My point and my general problem with this was the sinking feeling that it was all so bloody familiar. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Then, of course, it's only been 12 months. Everything that it worked its way through to the end of the conclusion of the episode was exactly like the one he gave us just 12 months ago with Sutek. We're getting the same thing with another classic villain. And I thought, well, if I take a look at that 2-part season finale from last year and everything that made that up, it's not a complete retread. All he's actually done, though, is to take the same elements and kind of rearrange them. Mm-hmm. So in the second part of last season's finale, we had them all living a different life. There was a sandy desert planet and there were some handmaidens and all that kind of thing. In this, we got that kind of living another life thing in part 1. And presumably we'll get next time, we'll get the kind of the spooky, more visceral stuff that was in The Legend of Ruby Sunday last. So he's basically just swapped the parts around and hope that none of us will notice, is the impression that I get.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Well, yeah.
I mean, which makes it odd that, if Russell has been kind of constructing this all as one big 2-season story, whatever, depending on what happens next week, it's weird that the parallels, would be so great.
Yeah, as soon as you got that the last 10 minutes, I was like, we're here again. We had this with Sutek. Just have a load of characters. I've got to mention this line, and Dave doesn't mention it.
Yeah, our line. Yeah.
That you literally have the Rani, like I said, acted brilliantly, but the dialogue telling you about what she's going to do, telling you about that stupid machine thing that you've been carrying around. Telling you, and then halfway through, and this was Russell talking to us, the audience. This isn't just exposition; it is Russell.
Yeah.
Just because you say that, doesn't make it not true.
I laughed my cock off at that point. I really did.
Before
can anybody really quickly, just I want to ask, and can anybody explain to me, this bugged me, but I think I know why he did it. Can anybody explain to me why in Conrad's story he's called Doctor Who?
That's simply Russell being cute and playing with the idea of worlds within worlds and what's reality and what's not, getting meta, because fiction genre fiction went meta 5 or 6 years ago, and all of Russell T Davies' cultural reference points are now a good 5 years out. Okay. I thought I was surprised by the homage to the Harry Potter book there that Conrad was reading from. I didn't think somehow that Russell T Davies and J.K. Rowling were on the same page anymore. Maybe I'm wrong, but obviously that was on. unmistakable.
Yeah, I think it was a dig too. I mean,
the thing that obviously is in the forefront of my mind, though, as a classic guy and somebody who's been spent most of the last week thinking about this, is where the hell was Susan? I mean, really?
Yeah.
To not feature her.
That's a bit of a cheat, really.
Any affecting way whatsoever. Even if if you didn't want to throw her in the mix this time, I understand, because there was a lot there already, and this is Carol Ann Ford, for heaven's sake. But some sort of scene, either at the front or at the very end, to leave this for another 7 days is borderline criminal.
This is just starting to remind. No,
we've got to move on now, because we've got other people to bring in, and we've got lots of comments in the live chat as well. This is usually the junction in the show where we go and connect with everybody who's been listening to us ramble on for all of this time. Before we do, though, let's whet our appetites with some proper classic Doctor Who coming our way very, very soon, and then we'll get to you guys in the live chat.
Have you ever thought what it's like to be wanderers in the fourth dimension? Have you? But one day... Yes.
I'm the Doctor. Maybe not the one you were thinking of. But I am the Doctor. I'm the Doctor, by the way. And you are?
Jenny.
You're a very intriguing man, Doctor.
And then he sells the company to a Mr. Scorpion? Don't get many of those in the phone book.
So...
Alien?
I mean, it looks a bit tight. Have I told you I'm claustrophobic?
Just concentrate on every step.
Yeah, but it's not steps we're taking, we're crawling.
That's a somewhat valid point.
You're both conscious, but paralyzed from the chest down. Yes. Within a month, the harvest will begin.
Real Doctor Who thrills and chills on the way there from Philip and everybody working on Doctor Who Meets the Scorpion. This is Type 40 Live on Rumble, X, YouTube and Facebook, back with more coverage of the latest season of all new Doctor Who. We've got comments from the live chat and more people to bring on to the panel, all friends together, brothers and sisters in arms. And I don't know if we're going to manage to bring anybody to justice this time with the boys in blue, but we're going to do our best here, reviewing Wish World, the penultimate episode of this season of Doctor Who. First of all, we've got some friends from podcasting and YouTube to bring on to flesh out the panel here. plucky viewers and fans of Doctor Who have spent decades in the trenches, as well as spitting out home truths on their YouTube channels as well. It can only be our mates Fila Betkin, the rabbi from another planet, and the mighty Bolstrek. Hello, both. Welcome back. Good evening, everybody.
Okay,
How
so
are you?
positive, we might bring it down a bit.
Chris, hi, Chris.
Hello, everybody. I
Hey,
can only stay
gents.
for a short period today because I'm behind in my editing of this wonderful thing I watched today. Also, Dan.
Yes.
Before we start, I'd like to propose a moment of silence. So, in a minute, everybody hang your heads. We're going to have a moment of silence for Omega.
You think the writing could be on the wall there?
Listen,
Okay,
they
there
can
we
do
go.
Anything to any character, and it doesn't matter. This is not Doctor Who. They can have Omega giving birth to Susan, and then they have a weird Susan, and it's still Doctor. Still not. It's no more Doctor Who. Than I don't care. You put that on the logo. Whatever is. This whole episode was just so they could have a previously on Doctor Who next week, right? It was being edited out. Nothing happened. Didn't it? I mean, like, nothing happened other than Shooty pointed out that anybody who doesn't agree with chicks with dicks are in fact women are totally, they hate people in wheelchairs. Like, if you are not on board with transgenderism, you want to see people with wheelchairs thrown to the side of society because we hate them too.
Yeah, Matt's just been
Have you
speaking
ever
very
met
well
anybody
about
who was like
about that.
wheelchair able? Like anybody ever?
No.
Like,
Not-
what
not-
is going
not
on
ever.
in his weird mind?
I mean, obviously, social attitudes change over the decades. But, you know, and I remember prejudice in the 70s, the 80s towards certain groups in society. But the one thing I never remember any prejudice against in Britain have been wheelchair users. Never. So I do see entirely what you both have said
Dan,
about that.
they had to invent something because, you know,
Because life's
they
too
don't
good.
exist if they're not offended by things.
Right.
I also find it very funny that Russell is delivering messages that were more fitting back in 1992, and he desperately wants us to still be in 1992.
Russell wants to be in 1992. That's for sure.
You know when people say don't look at them?
He's still angry with Margaret Thatcher, Matt.
No, I was going to say, do you know? Well, because like my mum used to say that, like whenever like I'd just be walking around and then you'd see a person with a disability or whatever, and then they'd be like, don't look at them, you know, and then that makes you want to look at them more.
Don't look at them. It's different.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
Totally two different things. Don't stare and point. Yes, don't stare and point. Not to go. Oh no.
We've got to take some comments from the live chat right now. We've got people watching on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X. They've been listening to us very, very patiently, ramble on about all this and try to make some sense of it, including John, who's in the live chat and says, an excellent point about wheelchair users. Never any prejudice in the UK, always sympathy, not least because of the legacy of war. Again, at times with what Matt was saying. Peter Harrington reminds us that there was a wheelchair with rockets and lasers. She only did mention, didn't she, that her wheelchair was very, very high tech, Charlotte. I caught that bit of dialogue.
Yeah, that was a bit weird.
Noodle Arms has been watching Oxygen instead, and he's venting here about how unfair it was on Peter Capaldi. We've got Robert Payne in the live chat as well. He suspects that the orange mug bad, orange bin bad.
Russell's worldview doesn't allow for the world having gotten better in any way since the late 70s.
Okay, because literally, if he did that, then he'd have nothing to write about. The reason I referenced 1992 is that's when this was edgy, because that's when Star Trek: The Next Generation did their sort of take on this with the Commander Riker episode.
Outcast.
So I believe
That's quite a good one.
Back to Reality.
No,
Red Dwarf did it with Back to Reality as well.
Well, Quantum Leap did it. I think it was in '91 with the same thing, and back then it was edgy.
Oh, with the cadet and the Navy cadets.
Yeah, that back then it was like avant-garde. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Well, it was edgy, it was timely, and it was controversial. But Russell, 1992. I don't know if you know this. It was 33 years ago. I was a young, optimistic 14-year-old back then. That's how long ago that was.
Michelle Burge is watching us on YouTube and said, I've said it multiple times. I just want to be entertained, not have agendas shoved down our throats.
How dare you?
It's countless the amount of times that we've said this, all of us, Gary, isn't it, over the last
by the way, I have to
5
tell you,
or 6 or 7 years.
That's exactly what Mission Impossible delivered for me yesterday. Like,
We can't go off topic. We simply can't go off topic.
If you want to be entertained, I'm not going to review it at all. It's just entertainment. It's
Rabbi, for taking us off topic, here's what's going to happen. You're going to be in a room by yourself with Dr. Nutty, unable to leave. I'm going to give you 3 hours. So everybody, hang your heads for Rabbi.
Wouldn't you like to wake up to him in the morning, Rabbi?
No. By the way,
go all rogue on your ass.
That was the worst acting I've ever seen from a bad actor when he kissed Verada Seafood. Like, did they like cut it so he didn't vomit? It was like,
he's never kissed a girl before.
Rabbi, you didn't buy him as a straight husband and father.
Oh God! Honestly, the whole non-reality hinged on his performance. Never have anything hinge on Shooty Gatwa's performance. He's a terrible actor, right? I'm sorry. I was in the bag for him. I thought he'll be good. He is a terrible actor. I've only ever seen him play gay.
I think he does creepy very well. I also really like the part where Cranky Pants Belinda got mad because she couldn't have an intellectual conversation with the baby.
Yeah.
And was mad because the baby did not remember the baby's own birth.
I never even understood why she ran out into the trees and the forests and started screaming.
No, Matt, that's a normal day for her. She's a very, very angry lady, and she has to let it out somehow. They just got it on video for the first time.
Okay, but she is very easy on the eye, so that I think that's
in my view, in this episode, this is the hottest any Doctor Who companion has ever looked. Noodle Arms says, I don't think that Susan will appear in the last episode. I think it was intended to the arc that would have been season 3. No, that's not true, Noodle. It is the Susan stuff is going to come next week, but obviously we've got 65 minutes of runtime and a lot to fit in, including another classic villain. So yeah, it does point to another dog's dinner. It does. It's better than the last 10 years of Who. I think they're talking about Philip Roy's fan film there.
God, yes.
We have Dalek Lives Matter says, I liked the way Russell T Davies has decolonized Doctor Who pretty much completely now. There was white privilege and patriarchy all over the shop.
Yeah, how's that working out for you, Dalek Lives Matter, mate?
I didn't... It's the Dalek Lives Matter.
Racism. That's saying I like the way Russell Davies has absolutely segregated him. He's super racist against it. Like, what's wrong with somebody being white? And why can't a black person be privileged? The most privileged people in society are trans people.
Well, I'm going to make a prediction. Here's my prediction for next week. I guarantee Dr. Nutty is not going to get as angry at current year Rani as he has in all the white villains this year. Guaranteed.
He's already down.
Julian Goodwin is watching as well and adds that Conrad is evil, so suggests he's been depicted as reading a homage to an evil author, and that Russell T Davies, that's some sort of petty swipe.
Do you think that was it?
Russell T Davies.
J.K. Rowling?
Yeah, I could see that.
It was a dig. It was.
Play for yourself. It asks, is the Doctor saying that Poppy is Susan, so suggesting that his daughter in that reality is also Susan in some way, the granddaughter that we know who's existed since 63. They could be going somewhere with this, because even in the cliffhanger, the Doctor, as he's plunging into what they're calling the underverse, there, a great cliffhanger this was. He's shouting, I have a daughter and Poppy is real. He's most insistent on that. They wouldn't have included that line if that wasn't going somewhere. I can't see where it could be going of any real
I thought
work.
that means that Poppy's going to turn out to be Susan's mom.
That would just be stupid enough. Even though the whole idea was for that to be kept vague for like forever. But hey, they've ruined everything else. So why not ruin this? Because
what I think he's pointing to, and this is what I was noticing, random stuff from the normal reality was coming through. like stuff that
Yeah.
wasn't made by the Wish World, wasn't made by Conrad or the
Oh, I
Rani.
see, yeah.
So you've got these, like I said, the so-called romance between Kate and Soldier Boy. Poppy was a thing from the real world bleeding through.
Mm-hmm.
Millie remembering past events bleeding through, like the iPad. Like some of it was really nebulous, but other stuff, it's like some parts of the old reality could either fight against this new one, or there was something about them that maybe will get explained next week.
Another thing, maybe it'll be explained next week. I won't hold my breath. What was the point of Mel or Susan? A Doctor Who is like a
None
parody
whatsoever.
now. Says
Or Mel, anyway.
I want to just address that point that Philip has made in a sort of way. There is a famous interview out there that led to much derision of the individual, of Christopher H. Bidmead calling Russell T. Davies a first draft writer, in the fact that he just throws a lot of stuff at a lot of people. Yes, he did.
I need to send him a card.
And never before has that been more apparent in this series, because he's just throwing a lot of stuff at people. And as we've said, as Matt's alluded to, and you've alluded to, Dan, there were so many different threads that could have been taken up or should have been taken up. And then suddenly it's a case of, right, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. And there's one common thing that Russell has in his end of season finales, so to speak, or episodes, is that at some point there is he backs everything into such an unretrievable corner that we get the massive Deus Ex Machina, the reset button. So I'm just wondering, at what point in the episode 8 are we going to get the big reset switch?
We've got a giant clock, so that's one thing.
Yeah.
Ticking clocks.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting Russell T. Davies is a hack, but
I
at
am.
times, Doctor Who, since it came back in 2005, has kind of lent on some of these tropes quite a lot. So we've got the big clock, which can be, you can move the hands, you can do all that, and you've got that other giant seal of Rassilon on something else. Heaven knows why that would be there, particularly if it's got anything to do with Omega. They were contemporaries, so Omega would have been lost at the time where Rassilon was the Lord President. So heaven knows where that is going. We've got Cybermat Strikes in the live chat here.
I've been a little bit thinking about that. And you go, Dan.
We've got to take some more comments. We've got so many here. Thank you, everybody, for being so patient. Cybermat Strikes says, no matter how dumb this finale is, God, that Rani is hot. I think not only
she's way harder. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Such a fantastic performance.
Oh,
This is Archie Punjab.
Now, if she'd have dressed like that, I would have been into it. But
yeah, I very much approve of this choice of the Rani, but I thought it was a terrific performance. And Robert Payne says Susan is doing a Rose Tyler popping up on TV screens. Yeah, it's simply yet another Russell T. Daviesism. I don't like ragging on this writer because I say I've always loved his work, but he's a spent force with this character and with Doctor Who. It's a sad. It's sad that it's come to this, but
I'm a little bit concerned that they may go the route of, because he likes his films as well, does old Russell, and I'm a bit worried since Omega, as we know, Omega is a corporeal being now. He has no body, and that's been the run through for these last few times he's been on, and I worry that he's going to have him go to they're going to use the Rani, as you know, likes to transfer things and everything. I'm a bit worried she's going to try and put Omega into the baby's body or something silly like that.
Maybe we'll get.
No, I think you're right.
Maybe
the more I think about it, the more I think you could be onto something, because this plot has got to go somewhere, hasn't it, Chris? Where are you at with this, Chris? Because obviously you make a finely tuned analysis of the plots to each episode of Doctor Who over on your YouTube channel, and I have been doing for years. But when you watch this stuff, does your imagination ever think about where it could go next, or are you way past that point?
Oh, I'm way past the point of caring at this point. Here's my summation, Dad. What is the stupidest thing they could do? That's what they will do. Keep in mind, last year they ruined
Oh
Sutek
dear.
because we got to see him drag behind the TARDIS like, I don't know, an insolent dog. Yeah, that's not very nice because I like dogs. What's the dumbest thing they could do with Sutek?
The trouble, Bowles, is that you can't get that done. Now, however, you just can't you can't have an idea as stupid.
Let's see. Well, Rabbi, this season they did turn their first villain into Spunk and then had him vacuumed up with the Spunk robot.
That's right.
So here's what.
true.
Okay,
That
so
did
they're
happen.
going to turn Omega into a baby, and then he's going to get grounded.
I think you're right.
And then Omega is going to get lectured because we don't know what color Omega is, but I'm pretty sure he's white. So he's going to be punished for that. And then it's going to be Captain Poppy is going to be the victorious one, and Captain Poppy is going to take down baby Omega. And then that's that. So it's literally it's going to be a fight between two babies. That's my prediction.
Baby gladiators.
No. You know, maybe we'll get. You know what? Maybe we'll get Peter Davison with the Rice Krispies on his face.
Oh, that would be good. What do you think is going to end up with a hand job of Omega?
Austin Wood says this is also very season 3 finale. It is. I couldn't help but get flashbacks back to the Master before in his the Rani's got a sort of a bone.
No, Dan, we forgot about the Master. Here's nitpicking Grumpy Bull's Trek. I like the fact that there's only 2. Yes, Russell, 18 years ago, you confirmed that the Master was around. But yes, there's only 2. We'll just pretend that third one doesn't exist.
Yeah. I think
Russell,
also they used I think they also used the music cue for the Master at one point in the episode.
Well, that was by accident. They were just going into their background. I'm like, Murray Gold is just phoning it in at this point anyway. So it's what do I have in my sound bank? I have this. Okay, just put that in because remember they've forgotten that the Master exists. Because
Stephen Braddock suggests the first part was a huge rip-off of WandaVision, but without the panache. That was the initial Marvel Studios TV show from about 4 years ago. I quite enjoyed that against all odds. I mean, in all fairness, WandaVision wasn't the first to do that either. But I think you could be right. You could be onto something. Russell almost certainly watched that, Rabbi.
Can I ask you a question? How can she be the last Time Lady and him the last Time Lord? When they're super gender and neutral now, how do you have a Time Lords and ladies? Go one way or the other.
Well, here's the thing, Rabbi. I don't think anybody knows if they're alive or dead or not because they've been brought back so many times now, and I have no idea where they were left during the Dr. Nasty era because I blocked that from my head and I didn't watch her last 3 episodes. But didn't one of them take place on Gallifrey or have something to do with Gallifrey?
I can't remember.
And I know that this is going to get annoyingly nitpicky, but I flinched with the way that Russell, of all people, described Omega as the first Time Lord, the creator of the Time Lords. That's really inaccurate.
That's Rassilon.
He and Rassilon founded Time Lord Society when they used the Pan of Omega to make the star go nova and harness the energy to enable time travel, but that does not make him the first Time Lord or the creator of the Time Lords. I mean, come on.
Well, no. Well, you see, Gary, they forgot something as well because remember, Dr. Nutty is the creator of the Time Lords in his original regeneration. So these people can't even keep their own stories.
You're right. Exactly.
I think that's going to be a feature moving forward that there's no clear canon and it self-contradicts itself. I think that's actually going to be a part of Doctor Who.
Well, thank God it's going away.
I think you're right. We've got several people in the live chat noticing moments that simply don't make sense, not just with past seasons of Doctor Who, but in the situation as it has been in recent years. For example, the Doctor's status as the last of the Time Lords, or even a Time Lord at all. I mean, the truth of the matter is the idea of the Doctor not being a Time Lord was fucking stupid and robs the series of so much. And Russell isn't daft. He knows that Chris Chibnall dropped a major bollock with that, and that's the reason why he keeps going back to it, because he knows that there's no potency left to the character or the lore. If you can't anchor it in that, it loses all that history and loses its not exactly its cultural relevance, but certainly its cultural resonance, whereby any of it means anything. If it's some sort of creature that's dropped out of a void somewhere that could read, and all of that stuff is not affecting in any way. I mean, people who claim there's more, that it's brought the mystery back to the show, it's just more mumbo jumbo. It doesn't mean anything. It's got no
Mystery
weight
has
to
a
it.
direction it's going in. This is just plot. When you have a plot hole, it's a plot hole.
Well, this is just
sorry, it's not a mystery. Mystery is how you got paid to make this done. There's an art. It has to have an answer to it for it to be a mystery. How did you get paid for this garbage? There's got to be an answer, right?
Well, no, there is. Well, here's what they're going to do, Rabbi. Because he's ruined the mystery of the Doctor. Like, it's literally the name Doctor Who no longer makes any sense. But one of the other enduring mysteries that has existed since 1963 is we don't know, and we were never meant to know exactly what the relationship between William Hartnell and Susan was. It was, I think, originally maybe in the original plan, when this was a 4-character ensemble show. It may have been some idea where they were going with this, but the idea eventually came, the way I've always looked at it, is we were never actually meant to know who is that his actual granddaughter? Is that just somebody he adopted as his granddaughter?
Oh no, I think the intention was always
ever
that she was his actual granddaughter. I don't think it was anything else.
But I think it's a story that we were never meant to know. It's not a story that I want to know, because I like the mystery of this show, but this show has no mystery left. So we're going to get the whole Susan story, and it's going to be something completely stupid. We'll find out.
It's going to be something stupid. I think you're absolutely right there.
I think
we'll find out that he's not actually the grandfather. He's Susan's grandmother.
He's Susan's lover. Okay, that's what it's going to be.
I'm pretty convinced he's going to reframe the Doctor and Susan's relationship in some way that he views as appropriate and forward thinking, either in a way that he believes will open up the law and unlock something in the character that's inhibited in some way, or simply to lean on more ideology and to promote more of the things that he believes in, that he's afraid that some people out there watching might not, and therefore are nasty people who need to be taught a lesson. That really does worry me. Looking over to the live chat, I see so much uncertainty, and I don't want to use the word fear, but there's trepidation, caution, and almost as if people are bracing themselves for the finale next week rather than being excited. Charlotte, that's Jake here says that Doctor Who has become a story about itself. The series is eating itself, and they're not done with that. And this is what really worries me, obviously, because this era comes to a close in just 7 days time. Just 7 days.
What worries me, and I had this worry as soon as we started to get the rumours who was going to be in this 2-parter finale. And actually, you brought up Mel, and I think that's a perfect example of what worries me. Is so we still have to fully sort of resolve the Rani, like how's she going to sort of go? Is she going to get killed? Is she going to walk off into the sunset? How are we going to deal with the 2 Ranis? Because Mrs. Flood is now currently making sandwiches, which I just think, God, can you insult this actress anymore? Have you tried, Russell? But as the character,
to be fair, I bet Anita Dobson can make a good sandwich. I have to tell you.
And keep in mind, she also brings a sandwich to Conrad.
Can you imagine the packed lunches that Brian May would have took to the recording studio, Charlotte? I bet there'd been something really quite special.
But this is my point. So that's still the Rani on screen. I know he's almost trying to make her not the Rani, the more I see of Mrs. Flood. But that's the Rani now being reduced to making a sandwich. We've, like you said, Susan, we saw a blink of her, and she should have been the one doing that message, not his bit of boyfriend from one episode. That
that was really distasteful.
So it should have, and then we've got Omega back, and so he should probably be the center point. And then we've got Conrad, we've got unique characters, and like we had Mel in this episode. Mel.
And also we got to explain why Mrs. Flood was breaking the fourth wall to camera all the time.
Oh, that's not going to get.
That's right. They won't bother. He won't bother with that at all. What worries me, you see, what seemed to me should have happened here is if you're going to have 2 Ranis on screen, part of the plot, why at the end of the cliffhanger where the Doctor's on that balcony, and I thought that was, generally speaking, a great cliffhanger. But what I don't understand is why one of the Ranis, ideally the one played by Archie Punjab, why she wasn't on the balcony as well. The sight of them both tumbling on that balcony down to the Underverse and an encounter with Omega, that's incredibly potent, particularly as I want this actress with that Doctor for as much as possible, because whilst their chemistry isn't what I'd call electric, she is so good, just like Verada's been, and Bonnie Langford as well, come to think of it. Every time he's opposite any of those actresses, he gets better. And I do feel that if it's just Ncuti Gatwa down there in this Underverse acting to thin air, because heaven knows how they're going to visualize Omega this time. I beggars belief. To put a Rani, why have two versions of the same character up in that bone castle, bone palace for the next hour? If you've got two characters, have her literally be in two places at once. What a missed opportunity.
Oh, but just give more to do. And like that was my problem with Mel in this episode. She was just there to be like, hello, I'm Mel. And then that was it.
Exactly. Same with I did hate the scene with the unit sergeant or whatever he is who fancies Kate Lethbridge-Stewart. The whole scene about like, what do you mean? Men don't like men.
We call him sexy time fun boy. But I hate to complain and leave. But if I'm going to get my editing time is like limited this weekend, and I spend 12 hours in hell with each one of these videos. So
Thanks for dropping by, Chris. It's appreciated.
Chris, take care, man.
I would like to say have a good weekend, all. And who's excited for this week? I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. Next Saturday is going to be the best day ever. So bye, everyone.
Look forward to
take care, Chris.
Back to editing. So have a happy May the 24th. Apparently, we're all going to die today. Yay.
Lisa,
we're not.
And as somebody said in the chat, the whole concept of the Underverse is just a lift from the Upside Down in Stranger Things.
Yeah,
it's all Stranger Things. Bear in mind that Stranger Things, which I love, by the way, but Stranger Things was at the forefront of popular culture in 2017, 2018. I know it's not finished yet, but nobody really talks about it anymore. And despite it being a quality show, Rabbi, and I do feel that
hasn't been on for a while.
For like 5 years,
3-4 years
back on screen. I think, or regain popularity. What did people think about the opening, the killing of the mother, and the turning?
I hate to say, we've already discussed all this stuff.
I found that very distasteful. I really didn't like that.
Yeah. And it's magic.
It was poorly realized. It was one scene. They should have ideally stayed there a little longer, I think, to make it, because it seemed very superficial and gratuitous.
Yes.
That's the problem with it. And Stephen Moffat used to include scenes like that. And I don't know. I just think I can see why he did it, but I think there could have been another way to show the ruthlessness of the Rani that would have been more, that wouldn't have felt so isolated. I think that was the problem with it. It felt isolated from everything else. And a lot of people who were just maybe finishing off their tea would just think it was more mumbo jumbo, and they wouldn't be able to work out what was going on.
Could the normal audience think about this?
Dan, can I just...
Yeah.
Normies aren't watching.
Can I just ask a question, just to get something clear in my head, please? I asked Charlotte I said to Charlotte, sent Charlotte a message that in one of the questions I asked, and I think you may have answered it, but I'm not sure. I said to Charlotte, what if the Rani's meant to stay true to character? What is the scientific purpose for trying to bring back Omega? Is it what you and Matt were alluding to put the Omega in the body of that baby?
I think that sounds good.
I think it has to be.
Yeah.
But why?
But why?
I'm betting on it. I really am. I'm just like I can tell that he's going to he's taking it straight out. He thinks he's clever, but he doesn't realize that he's seen it all before by watching Ghostbusters.
Well, there's a reason why. If you remember, they made a couple of Fantastic Four movies back in the noughties, and they attempted to realize the character of Galacticus, who was an enormous sort of 80, 90, I hate to think how many stories high this giant is in the comics. A colossal figure. It just looks incredible in those comics on those pages. But they couldn't realize that on screen at all. So they depicted him as a gas. And
gas cloud.
Yeah, and so the character of Galactus was completely lost, had no visual impact at all. And even his presence, the presence of Galactus. Galactus was a person, an entity we were told that was there. But we couldn't see any markers for that. Omega's a character who technically doesn't exist without if he hasn't got a body, a corporeal form. And so I can see it's the reason why in all of those Hammer and Amicus movies, a lot of horror movies in the past where they've been summoning beasts, they've been to put them in a body. So then I think the demons is the same.
That was the same
so
with
that if
Vigo,
they've got physical form, then they can affect the world. They can affect.
That's what I'm saying.
They can affect the world that we live in. So that's to do with premonition, incantation, superstition.
I get you.
So I think that it's stuff that's been done over and over again. It's COD storytelling. They're cliches, if you like, but they do work. But again, it's yet more that's got to be packed into. How much can he pack into an hour and 5 minutes?
It seems to me that Rusty Davies needs to take a long holiday, retire. He's just not up for it. I'm sorry. Beyond the political insanity. I mean, again, this was a really weird glimpse into his diseased brain.
Yeah.
Where he says, again, these people, they just hate everything. They hate people in wheelchairs. By the way, why wasn't Yasmin Finney in with the...
She's in next week.
Next week.
She is in it next week, and if you stay tuned to Type 40 Live, I can. She was supposed to be in more of it. If you stay tuned, make sure you're subscribed and hit the cloister bell to get notifications. I'll tell you why she wasn't been in more. If that's not worth sticking around for, I don't know what it is.
But where's our other scientific advisor? He's completely disappeared.
Oh, Lenny Roth, thank you for that. I mean,
he's off with his Segway somewhere.
Well, they only, to be fair.
Well, he would have been in with the internment camp.
To be fair, they did say at the time that they cast that actor and created that character simply because Ruth Madeley wasn't available to reprise Shirley Bingham.
I didn't know that.
So that's why. Yeah,
I still want to see like a Dalek-like mine with all the people in wheelchairs and Lenny Rush having to dig coal or something. I didn't think that would be something incredible.
Well, they did have dwarves in it.
What?
They did have dwarves in it.
Why even have a bone palace? Asks Robert Pays.
That made no sense. And the giant dinosaur things. Like, what's going on with that?
I do know that Bone Palace was P Diddy's weekend place. So maybe
I was going to say, I think Russell just liked the idea of typing Bone Palace a lot in his script.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And one last thing I got to say about Susan. To me, if there's one thing I could say that angered me about potentially what might happen next week, Dan, the way you described it, to me, Sidney Newman, Donald Wilson, and Verity Lambert fully intended Susan to be the Doctor's actual granddaughter, period, end of sentence, and no decades later reframing by a burned out hack like RTD, to me, will stand.
It's things are going to get explosive over the next week or so in one way, shape or form. It's never been our business on Type 40 to spoil people's fun or to rain on parades. And we try not to be cruel either in the way that we criticize things. We try and be fairly even, and all opinions are welcome. I haven't been able to be objective about one episode in particular this season, and I've been really open as to why. Going forward, you see things, you hear things, and you can't help but, like everybody in the live chat here, they use a character like Omega, and you think, okay, in the past they've brought back old characters very, very well, but they've also, in more recent times, cocked them right up. And so again, you can't help but be informed by one's experiences. And so it taints you. Even the most objective of people can't help. You've got to be informed by your experiences, because that's how we temper ourselves for disappointment. And for some people, obviously, maybe they loved the Sutek thing last year and they want more of the same. And again, you do you. It would be my statement on that always. But our responses are genuine and authentic, no matter how long we've been watching this show. And so it's perfectly reasonable for us to, if not call them out, then to certainly signpost the things that we see and the patterns that would seem to be evidently repeating themselves. And whatever that's down to, whether it's pushing of an agenda or being burnt out of ideas, any of those things isn't good for this show going forward. Apparently more trailers have been released this evening whilst we've been live on YouTube, which is about half of the course. And then they just dry up, don't they, after that for a little while. We've got Hans Christian Andersen meets the Rani. That was the opening scene, wasn't it? Says Peter Harrington.
Yeah.
A kind of weird X-rated version of Hans Christian Andersen meets the Rani. It was like, not like triple X, I mean like R-rated for Americans.
Mega Neurobyte asks, where is the 14th Doctor? Maybe Conrad doesn't know anything about him.
Oh, that's the other thing that made no sense.
No. The flashback. The flashback didn't have the 14th Doctor in it either. Did you know?
No, it did. It did.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
And Dr. Ruth. But after Jodie. How did that make any sense?
Yes, exactly, Rabbi. I was hoping somebody was going to mention that.
Yes.
None of it makes any bloody sense.
Dr. Once in the live chat, yes, I've seen that picture too. But as I say, we try not to spoil things for people here on Type 40 Live. But yeah, there are things out there. Yeah, but we're not going to talk about that. It would be fair. I like those two Fantastic Four movies, says Woodhouse 122. And we've got Robert Payne said, but the baby laughs like the toy maker. They've included that giggle.
Oh, they did that. Yeah. I noticed that.
Gary, you spotted it a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't hear it, but I heard it this week. They had the baby laughing, didn't they? The seventh son of the seventh son.
I didn't. Did it use the toy maker's laugh? I don't.
Yes, it did.
I didn't hear that.
Basically, it was the baby's voice, but it was in those notes. I noticed it
in today's episode.
Toy maker.
Yeah.
Also,
I'm not rewatching it.
The design from the design. Somebody pointed out that the design from the Interstellar Song Contest had the waveform of the giggle as well on it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I just wish these ideas were good that they're putting.
Wait, say that again. Say that again, David. What?
Yeah, you know the giggle, the ha 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 ha.
Right.
Obviously done in tune, not as my monotone drawl. It was the wave form of on the Interstellar Song Contest, the part of the logo of it.
Okay.
On the set.
I think that was done to try and make the baby scary. Because the line that also made me laugh when they said it was when Conrad was holding the baby. And he said, "Oh, it's terrifying." I'm like, "Conrad, it's a little baby."
Yeah.
It's not got like red eyes and horns and stuff coming off it. It just looks like a normal baby.
Yeah.
So
there is no Poppy, only Zool.
Yeah, but did they do that to add to that sense of this? Because once again, I've said this, they want to play with gods. They want to play with these over-the-top sort of fantasy things. How do they show them? Woman down the street in Story in the Engine, the daughter, and now I'm literally meant to believe a baby is a god.
Well, I think it's more.
I'm fine with that. In my opinion, all that stuff's actually quite potent. It's just that it's yet another decent idea that's thrown into. It's wasted. I think all of that stuff is absolutely fine and belongs to that tradition of sort of classic horror storytelling to do with superstition and all that kind of stuff, the occult, and Russell has lent on some of that in the past, the Shakespeare Code episodes like that, which I know was Gareth Roberts, but his ear, he does have those leanings as well. But it's yet another piece to another puzzle. I feel that a lot of the elements of this particular episode were like trying to make a jigsaw with bits and pieces from a set of sort of 6 different puzzles.
When I made that. When I made that Ghostbusters joke a second ago, it just clicked with me. This whole idea that you guys are throwing around about Omega going into the baby, that's a ripoff of the plot of Ghostbusters 2.
That's what I've been saying.
Where the guy
in the beginning, I said Ghostbusters 2 numerous times.
I'm sorry,
it's Vigo the Carpathian.
How many?
Where have you been? Have you been around, Gary?
I didn't hear you say Ghostbusters 2. Sorry about that. It's like, oh my gosh, how many ripoffs are there in this episode?
That's what I'm saying. It's he thinks he's clever, but he doesn't realize that he's just ripping off something that he's seen, and he just doesn't realize. Or maybe he does, and he's a hack.
Well, Matt, it's not just. I think that Peter's got an interesting comment here in the live chat, and Rabbi, you talk about this quite a lot. Come to think of it, but what you're just saying, Matt, nothing new is being created. Yeah, Doctor Who has always lent on tropes, but we're going through lots of calling cards of Russell's earlier work, lots of stuff that's been done elsewhere, and more to the point, not creation, deconstruction. Peter Harrington says it's all about destruction. I'd say that the actual word is deconstruction. It's all about deconstruction.
Okay. Can I
affecting destruction today because Peter believes that creation is beyond their intelligence. I would say that, and I don't mean to speak for you, Peter, but I think it's not that it's beyond their intelligence. It's just that they've got no interest in creation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just put this forward? Last season, at the end, in the finale, the penultimate episode, there were Sutek possessed 2 people, right?
Yes.
Didn't he?
Yes, you are right.
That sounds like
Mel
Ghostbusters, doesn't it? With the dogs.
And the Harbinger woman.
And then the real one came forward, and it was Sutek. Hello. So maybe this time around we're getting the sequel to Ghostbusters. I know, clever.
Paul Thomas Ashworth liked this episode. You know what? In many ways, I didn't actually dislike this episode as the first half of a story of an average. And if this was a mid-story, midway through a season of 12 or 13, Rabbi, I think I'd be a lot happier with it. But as it turns out, this is meant to be the season finale in a run of just 8 episodes. So I'm just aware that for all the things that it did have going for it, and there were several: production design, a fantastic villainess, several creative ideas. There's so many things about it that simply aren't up to scratch.
Yeah, again, it's even worse if they have things that are very good, right? Because it's just like it's such a terrible waste. Right, it's such a terrible way. Like it's, I don't think there was actually that much of it. But the trouble is, Shooty Gatwa is just awful. And then Russell trying to tell us that like being gay is okay. No one has any problem with anybody being gay. Literally nobody in the audience prior, in 2017 had any trouble with anybody being gay ever. Have you ever met anybody in your personal life that said, "Oh, screw those gay people"? Like no one. No one gives a shit.
Mm-hmm. We've got a comment here from
that we don't. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not going to accept that. I think I'm not going to say Yasmin Finney is a woman because I don't believe she is. I'm not going to lie knowing I'm lying, which is what you're demanding. Right, he's demanding that I lie knowing I'm lying. And I'm not going to do that.
We have to be careful what we say on YouTube about that sort of thing.
No, Supreme Court, I think, said it pretty clearly.
I agree.
But Google doesn't care about the Supreme Court, unfortunately.
That is true.
Nomadinas says, I'm just sat here thinking, how have we gone from them blowing the doors off the TARDIS with all that fire at the end of last week to happy families? Now, I don't mind jumps in time, like time jumps in episodes of stuff, but I don't think that's an unreasonable question. When you see fire belching through the doors of the TARDIS, that's not your average cliffhanger. That implies that the TARDIS itself has been damaged, has been breached. And so it's just that bit to how much of that is fantasy and reality, Gary? I suppose we're meant to not and to be honest, this annoyed me when Stephen Moffat did it at the end of several episodes, but particularly at the end of The Name of the Doctor into the Day of the Doctor, where he just faced his lost incarnation, hadn't he? Next thing we know, Clara's riding a motorbike through the double doors of the TARDIS. You think, oh, hang on a minute, I've been waiting for 6 months to see what the Doctor's saying.
You really had 6 months in between the two as well.
Yeah,
you can't wait two episodes to address it. A cliffhanger like that, you've got to.
They're not going to address it. They're never going to address it. But the problem is this: they're going to rewrite lore again next episode. That seems to be pretty clear. And you can do that really easily if it's, and there's the only rule: is it good? Like Deadly Assassin rewrote lore to a
Yeah.
great extent, and it was good. If it's good, you'll get away with it. If it's not, you won't. Adding in the War Doctor, that was good, right? If it's not good, it's not going to. Doing it with Dr. Ruth, that was bad because we've seen it before, right? This is very dull. Is it good?
Yeah.
And that's just, it's not going to be good. No, you have the whole thing about how people in wheelchairs are put upon minority, which I don't particularly believe. The only cool wheelchair I can ever I've seen many attempts to make wheelchairs look cool, and they're always cringe. Like Spy Kids did it with Ricardo Montalban's wheelchair. It was just like a bit cringe, and Shirley Bingham wheelchair, just a bit cringe. The only time a wheelchair I can think really look cool is Davros, right? That wheelchair, that's pretty darn cool.
Yeah, I would agree, actually.
Yeah. A badass wheelchair.
Can I just say I'm not surprised that the Daleks are not in this episode.
Oh, we're clearly not getting Daleks.
It's believed he intended them to be the big villain of season 3, which he was obviously convinced was going to happen. Michelle Burge here says, I want the Doctor back, the Doctor who made me fall in love with history. He hasn't been around for a while now. No, you're quite right. We've got a hello here from Lee in the live chat. Hiya, mate. We've got Peter Harrington who says, has it been confirmed that Shooty was sacked? Gone, finished. Bye-bye. Peter, this is the place where we broke that all the way back in February. Go back to episode 200 where we break all that down.
Confirmed.
No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't. It hasn't been confirmed yet, and they won't confirm it for a little while. But believe me, this time next week, it will be more than evident. And if, for example, I won't say that.
What a tease, Dan.
Georgia Tennant turns up.
Will be the permanent next Doctor, or is the next Doctor going to be a step into
let's move on before I say something I shouldn't. Hey, says Lee, problem being. Ashvin's in the live chat as well and says it's similar to Bad Wolf, but at least they explain the transmat.
What transmat?
I didn't meet any trans Matt.
Wait, what?
Was there a bloke? Was there a trans character called Matt?
Very witty, Matt. Very.
That's all I'm expecting in these.
Super John's here with a fabulous icon there, watching on YouTube.
Ooh, I like that icon.
Oh, John says the rabbi is based, and
that's been said before.
And Ashvin asks, what do you guys think of the Rani and the Doctor's past as described in the episode?
Nice. That was a high point.
I agree. Yeah. I loved it. In fact, because obviously their relationship is very, very different to that which the Doctor has with the Master, and I thought that underlined it really quite beautifully in a way that you think, I'd like to see more of that.
I would love to see a missing adventure with like Peter Davison's Doctor dancing with the Rani.
There you go.
Right, in like Kate O'Mara Rani. I think that'd be awesome.
And what was so nice is we've had the Master pretty much all the way through New Who at this point. He's always the big bad, always the one they go to, and that's a very anti and sort of they hate each other. This sort of the Master sort of hates the Doctor or wants to get over on him, or his plans all focus around the Doctor. And it was nice to actually have a villain have that, not that hatred on display, and have a bit of fun with the Doctor.
Oh, I have to tell you, I thought Mrs. Motivation in the generally fails Moffat season finale where she was introduced, where she was bonkers and she wanted to turn the Earth into an army of Cybermen as a gift for the Doctor because she loved the Doctor. I thought that was really cool. That was one of the best bonkers plans they have ever done.
There was a. Oh, I'm sorry, Dan. Go.
I've got to read some more of these comments.
Yeah.
Psychic Speed says, I'm still convinced the Master will show up because Michelle Gomez was at that premiere. She's the only person I think. Oh no, because Joya Ando was also there, who played Martha's mum, wasn't she? Yeah. But there's only those two women, those two actresses, Gary, that haven't turned up yet in the show. Because Joe Martin. So, what do you think, Gary? Do you think that Michelle Gomez could make an appearance? Is there room for it? Is there room for anybody else?
What is it? 66 minutes? Why not? I guess, if you want to, I guess the lesson from all this is that if you want to be cast in a Russell T. Davies production, just go to a party where he's at, and you'll end up on one of the episodes. I actually wouldn't mind seeing Michelle Gomez again. I agree
with you, Gary. I agree.
I like it left as it was. So the amount of times they've gone back to these characters and ruined, because that the moment where we're not sure, the John Sim incarnation and the Michelle Gomez incarnation are kind of in that scene together, aren't they? And we don't see how it resolves. I like the fact that ideally that'll be the last we see of either of them.
Right.
In my view, I think that's what I would prefer. But I know that results are going to vary on that as well.
And I think it was. I love that her ending was technically standing with the Doctor.
Yeah.
After all that
Very
she'd
good.
been through in that series,
It's the completion of that character. I feel sure.
Yeah, but also
I
she
do
knew
need
she was
to
going
go.
to be laser shot with a laser by the younger master, so she clearly has some shielding on.
But no, I do have to go, everybody. I've got my little knock.
Okay, Charlotte.
Okay.
Bye, Charlotte. Have a good weekend.
We'll catch you in a few days' time. Have a great
Enjoy your little
holiday.
I missed that comment.
Can't argue.
What else have we got? Crimpling Doubloon reminds us that on the One Show promoting the 60th specials, Russell T Davies offered to give a part to Jenny Agutter. I'm still waiting. He also offered, what's her name, a part as well, Helena Bonham Carter. That was on the Graham Norton show.
Oh, please stop. Did Shooty cry tonight? I don't think we got Shooty cry.
Didn't he?
No,
They must have did over a two-parter. Okay, he's going to cry. Is he going to cry into the regeneration?
Almost
I hope
certainly.
so. I hope he's going to blub like a big baby.
His last words will be "Bye, babes."
Bye, baby. Bye, baby.
Baby, bye,
Yes.
bye.
Okay. Well, the Doctor. I mean, he did sort of get Belinda home in the finish. To be fair to him, albeit in a kind of unconventional way. A home, not her home, not even her reality. But yeah, that he got her there in the end. That's another story that's going to wrap up next week.
May I ask a question? Like a very quick one. So as I didn't watch the Robot Revolution, is that right? Is this the first time we've seen her mother?
Yes.
No, you saw her in the first one, didn't you?
No, you didn't.
No.
It is the first time we've seen her mum.
I'm sure
It
you
is
saw
the
the
first-
Robot Revolution.
No, because the first time that we saw her, she was working at the hospital, and then she was in her
Flat.
group home with her.
Is it
friend.
really the first time we saw it? It just seems that I've seen her father before in it.
No, we've not seen her dad either.
No, not.
Well,
the
I'm
dad
just
either.
Her dad is due to appear because we had a little segment about him a couple of weeks ago. So her dad is due to appear. Yeah. So again, yet more things they've got to try and sort of pack in. Really. We've got Trek Matt in the live chat, clearly coming from a parallel franchise. Do we
There
think
you
they're going
go.
to resolve who picked up the tooth? Not a chance. Not
It'll be
a
Mrs.
snowball's
Flood.
chance. That'll be left hanging. Yeah, but yes.
Not
So
many people
they
remember
are
anyway.
home. They were home. Now the Doctor is off in the Underverse, which sounds quite perverse, doesn't it? The more you say it, that does
We never
sound quite
talked.
perverse.
We never talked about seeing Susan Twist again. We saw Susan Twist again. Who
cares?
Who cares? That's the problem.
I just didn't really care. I was interested in what biscuits she had because I do like a biscuit.
That's
but
right.
That's about it.
Oh, she had digestives.
We can
Pink
go back.
wafers.
There's plenty of opportunities to discuss about the biscuits and Susan Twist later on. In fact, there could be other things that we missed. If you could have missed them too, so you can go and check out Wish World. It's streaming on the BBC iPlayer and Disney Plus right now. So yeah, they need all the help they can get with this show. So I'm sure they'll appreciate any rewatches that you are charitable enough to give this episode between now and next week, when we get the balance of this story, the second half of the season finale there, when all new Doctor Who continues, as a to be continued, to be concluded, I think, on BBC One. There, we've got the time, we've got the details here for that next episode, The Reality War. That's at 6:50 p.m. on BBC One. This one's not on the iPlayer before or up on Disney Plus anytime before either. Everybody all over the world gets it more or less at the same time. As I understand it, there's going to be a 10-minute lag between Disney Plus and BBC One. Not entirely sure why that's happening, but
Wait, who's first, Disney Plus or BBC One?
Oh, BBC One get it first, and then Disney Plus get it.
I'll tell you why, because Disney Plus can't drop on the hour.
Correct.
That's what I said.
Can't drop 10 minutes. Yeah.
I was told that I didn't know what I was talking about, of course, because you're always told that on X or on Facebook. But that's, as I understand it, it's the mechanics of the platform just won't let them drop anything at 10 to an hour.
10 to.
Oh, it has to be the top of an hour. Got it. Okay.
So this is the Reality War, episode 8 of 8, 1 hour and 6 minutes. So I would say that will mean it'll take it up to the 8 o'clock mark there. And the synopsis that's listed here so far just says, battle rages across the skies as the unholy trinity unleash their deadly ambition. The Doctor, Belinda and Ruby have to risk everything in the quest to save one innocent life. Whose innocent life? Is it the baby?
Dr.
Is
Poppy.
it Conrad? Is it Poppy? Is it you, David? Is it any of us? It could be anybody.
It could be Rylan
next week. We'll all find out at the. Could be
Graham
Rylan. We'll all find out at 6:50 p.m. UK time next week. There with the Reality War. Let's take another break. Let's jet off for another break and catch up with someone else while we all gather our thoughts, ready to sign off. Okay, we'll talk to this fella.
Perfect. Just the person I need to see. Firstly, loving the outfit, by the way. Really suits your hair. Secondly, the universe is falling apart. I don't have much time to yet. I need to shoot off. I need to do something. But by all means, this is imperative. Watch Type 40. Type 40 podcast is where you need to be. Seguile!
That's great.
Cheers, buddy. Yeah, so that's what we all thought, and what some of you thought as well. But I dare say that as we've been speaking together, there's been little things that have niggled at you, or bits that you've enjoyed. Maybe you can let us know some more. Keep them coming there in the comment section, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. We'll help one another through the next 7 days. The next 7 days together. The Rani seem very, very pleased with themselves. I don't know what's in the glass there, whether it's alcoholic or if they're staying together and complis mentis for what they view as a victory. That's the Vindicator inset into the clock behind them for, well, whatever reason.
Yeah, I couldn't work.
Everyone knows why that's
so.
Yeah, and Anita Dobson, perhaps I haven't said enough in this episode how great she was in the material that she was given here. Has to be, I don't think I've ever seen a WPC so elderly. I don't think she'd mind me saying that.
I know she was a senior officer.
Although I would be very happy to be arrested by her. I'll be like,
she
I'm going to you, man.
Dan, she was of chief officer rank.
Oh, okay. Oh, there we are. But there's somebody who knows his epaulets when he sees them. Okay, so
I used to watch the Bill, you see.
Gotcha. Avidly, yeah. So I was a Juliet Bravo man myself. Yes, I think. But yeah, Anna Cartwright used to do it for me. I was only about 8. Dirty boy. Okay, so that's what the Ranis, they're toasting their apparent victory. It would seem we've got to wait until next week in the Reality War to see how that plays out. With a title like the Reality War, it does imply that nothing could ever be the same again. And let's face it, Russell T Davies was never really one for Ross anyway. He's trying to work with the let's face it, the complete shit that he was left by Chris Chibnall. So why he doesn't abandon the entire thing. The dignified thing to do would have been to just move on from it and forget about any of it.
Yeah,
so
this
loyalty,
loyalty
to such a massive failure is holding him back. But yet the reality war next week, and we will be here with our instant reactions to the Reality War, the end of the season, and the end of the Ncuti Gatwa era of Doctor Who. You can let us know what you think of it all, how much you're looking forward to it or not, if you get in touch with us through our social media, Instagram and X at Type 40 Doctor Who. And we'll be talking about it all week in the Type 40 Facebook group as well. There's a review thread already open for this very episode. Get stuck in there and exchange your rants and raves with other members, or you can leave us some feedback through SpeakPipe, either about the episode itself or about our discussion there. So we take any kind of feedback at all, even your predictions about where things could go. That's on SpeakPipe. Get involved with the podcast or the live stream there, because Type 40 live on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X is your companion to the whole of this season. Only one more week to go, Gary. Thank heaven for that.
I'm actually looking more forward to our discussion next week than the episode
I can't
itself.
wait.
I mean, next week's
Oh, I'm
show,
begging.
next week's stream is going to be epic.
It's going to be so late though.
Matt,
They're not throwing it till like whatever. We can't go live till like 8:30 it finishes, 8:00.
Something, yeah.
It's hard to work. I think between now and then we'll be able to work out what we can do and when we can do it and who can be involved and how. So we'll just do our very best to make sure we get as many opinions as possible. Woodhouse 122 suggests that watching once was enough for them. Well,
yeah,
I know the feeling. I haven't gone back to any of these episodes yet. Not one.
I will
of them.
never. I will never.
As I said before in another, I think I said before. I think on a stream a couple of weeks ago. It's a lot like single-use plastic. It's meant to be used once.
Yeah. You
once,
can't
and
run
then
it
thrown away.
again. Your brain is designed for your brain to
Ouch.
like get away with one viewing. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I don't know. If somebody holds a gun to my head and says, "I'm going to watch something for the last, since post Capaldi, or I'm going to kill you," it's something from this season.
I mean, I've had hemorrhoidal banding twice, and that was less painful than watching this show of Doctor Who at the moment. And and that is something you do not want to experience ever. But sadly, it was to do with the injury I had on my back. It caused some unnecessary side effects. But I'd much rather go through that process again.
I thought that they're standing on your hemorrhoid right now.
Yes, that it's around about that amount of pain, Rabbi.
It looks like it. Oh God,
I do. Before we go, I do have to tip my cap to David Galvin, who I guess is a new person in the chat, who made me laugh a lot when he said, "At least at the end of the next episode, the words 'not to be continued' will appear on screen."
It's continuing. We get 2 years
continue.
off, and then we got another 16 episodes. It's continuing. God help us! I have no idea how, but it is.
Again, that's a conversation for another time, I'm afraid, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for the comments that we've had on this edition of the show. We've made it through together, haven't we? Great show, says Stephen Braddock. Type 40, I mean, not Wishworld. Well, thank you. Thank you. And Stephen Braddock, again, says the discussion next week is going to be epic.
It will.
Thank you to Lord Thoth and Vanessa Law and Problem Being and everybody else in the live chat there who moderates for us on the Type 40 YouTube channel. Michelle Gomez has really got her fans here.
Yeah, she
Maybe
was
I was wrong
amazing.
there.
A lot.
Maybe I was wrong
I
about
was
it.
nearly
Yeah.
next by the Seth McCoy, Michelle Gomez, like Seventh Doctor Missy Big Finish thing, but it's Dark Gallifrey, and I think I'm done with that. I just can't bring myself anymore.
Is Poppy from a young Heather Small? She's definitely got her hairstyle, isn't she? And the some of those videos from the 90s. Yeah, I'm a big Heather Small fan. Big fan of Small. Yeah. And Woodhouse 126 says, I'll not be watching on Saturday. I'll probably enjoy it on Sunday morning. Why spoil your Saturday night? And Crimpling Doubloon suggests that the baby could turn out to be Rylan. I don't think I can top that. So I don't think any of us can. So that's our cue, I think, to sign off for another one. Thank you for joining us there. Mr. D, who suggests you can see no one rewatches the show by how terribly low consolidated figures are. Yeah, we cover the ratings as well when we can find the will to do that. Thank you, everybody. Nicholas Horton too. I don't think we've had one of his comments up on the live chat this time. And Tom from T Dwarf Productions, who reminds us that Omega always has strange beasts as his servants. All that's to come next time. But that's our cue to shuffle off for another one, another intense live raw reaction stream, instant reactions there to Wishworld. I'm going to go off and rewatch it. Will I? Maybe. No. I don't know. Thanks for making it on, Rabbi. I would imagine you're going to give some sort of extended breakdown over on your YouTube channel in the next 24 hours or so.
That'll be on tomorrow night. I am amazed. They're probably next week we're going to have like jail guards. So Shooty Gatwa's going to strip down and wrestle in Jello. Right? The aforementioned hand job on Omega.
I don't know.
Rabbi, I'm fully expecting a thumbnail with Omega in a bikini this week.
Oh, there you go. Who am I going to play Omega?
David, Gary,
Absolute pleasure.
and Matt, thank you for your company again this time. all your thoughts, those raw reactions, and flights of fancy there about what could happen if this had been a good episode of Doctor.
Yeah, absolutely. Who knows?
Between us,
we could have gone anywhere.
Between us, we've almost made it make sense, haven't we?
Yeah. I think we've done a pretty good job.
Enjoyed it together.
I think we've done a pretty good job.
As always, yes, Type 40 Live is your companion to this season of Doctor Who, for better or for worse, with no party lines, no beef, and no bullshit. We'll be back with more news, views, nostalgia, discussions, and banter later in the week, as ever. Of course we will, but that's it for this one. We always have the time if you have the space here at Type 40 Live. Yeah, go and rewatch if you dare. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.